This Mopsi is a system that we built at the university, and the project actually started in 2008, if I remember right. So this is like a 10-year anniversary already. And Mopsi is a software, a location-based software. You could call it a location-based social network, because in it the users are sharing their location all the time, and you can interact with the other people in one way or another. The features that we built in Mopsi are a lot of them. They are ranging in very, very different applications, from GPS trajectories to points of interest to geotagged photos, live user tracking. We even tried some special types of transportation systems like buses, special kind of maps. And today we will look to see a little bit about how Mopsi works and what are the things that went into building this system. It will be just a discussion about the more interesting features in it, and if you have at any moment questions or want to learn more about one specific feature, just ask. Okay, so first things first. Mopsi has a website, but it also has applications for different mobile systems. It has a version for Windows Phone, a version for iPhone which temporarily doesn't work, a version for Android which also has been taken down from the marketplace, but you can still install it from there, and the older version for these Symbian devices, these old Nokia phones. Because at the time when Mopsi started, there were no Android, iPhone, Windows Phone. It was before that. So Mopsi began with this mobile system. Now, all I can say is that the apps are getting worse and worse every day, because they are not maintained anymore. So these apps got updates last time, as you can see here, 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And because of that, you would think that they stay the same, but no. Because you are using, when building these kind of applications, different external sources, like Google Maps or Facebook for logging in, or finding other friends, or maybe some bus transportation API, those things keep changing. And it's your pressure as a developer to update those changes into your code. And if you don't do it, then your apps will start to have some issues and not support all the features that have done in the past. Okay, but anyway, I will present today this Android version of Mopsi. And if you have Windows Phone, this is the most complete version. So it has most of the features that we have implemented in the mobile version, but not many people have Windows Phone anymore. So this is now a bit of a pointless thing to mention. But if you do, try it out. Now, to show how it looks like on mobile, I'm going to share the desktop on this other computer. Where I am viewing this Android emulator over here with Mopsi running. So this is Mopsi running. I have logged in already with this user called Z. It is a test user, so it doesn't really appear in Mopsi unless you have activated some admin feature to see these particular users. I'm using this test user now to test because I am faking its location. So everybody has real data in Mopsi except these test users who we use to simulate different things when we do development. Like we did when we created this Where's Waldo game. I wasn't going outside when playing the game because it's you can do that, but it's going to take much more time to do debugging. Funny thing is that once when we were developing a bus application, it was in Mopsi, it was for Kouvola and for Joensuu cities, and we had to go in Kouvola sometimes and test if the system is working there. And at that point we were testing with the laptop on our laps in the bus all day and then checking out our coordinates are moving around because we didn't have much time to be there and we wanted to see if the buses are indeed where the database says it is. So it was also possible to test like that, but definitely not recommended. So yeah, test user, because I'm putting him in some random location here. He's actually in Mikrokatu at the moment. He's in Kuopio, near to where I am. But I can change these coordinates from here, and then I think, yeah, he disappeared somewhere. More or less on the other side of the road, maybe where Prisma is. Okay, so this is now the profile screen where user can see his location. He can have address on the top, so this is geocoding, similar to what you did before. Instead of using the Google geocoder, however, we have installed the OpenStreetMap database, complete database of the world, and we are using its service called Nominatim for the geocoding. So we can run as many geocoding queries as we want because it's installed on our own server and it's an open source service. So if you ever need to do this geocoding, then one way is to use OpenStreetMap and this Nominatim.
How large is the database?
I can't say, but I can find out.
Gigabytes or terabytes?
It is gigabytes, I think, but not just one. Some things in Mopsi are limited to only Finland region, but this address location works everywhere. So for this one we installed everything. Some things require more memory than others, but it's in the level of gigabytes. Okay, and from here you can also check a user's photo collection or route collection if it works. Okay. Andre, he made the first Mopsi for Symbian device. So he is now back in Romania. He's working for Amazon. But yeah, so anyway, some old pictures here taken by this test user. I think that this smartboard is actually not letting me operate the screen correctly. But anyway, each photo has option to give it a rating, like this thumbs up or thumbs down. It should, okay. it should make the smiley face appear there if you give it a rating. And every photo has the photo information, but also the title. It's something that user enters when he's taking a photo into the system. And address is again geocoded from his coordinates at the moment. Okay. And the routes. This looks like definitely some kind of testing route. I think it should. Wow. This may look like some real route. Anyway, I don't know who recorded this. It might be some real user with mobile phone logged into this test account, or just using emulator somewhere. But each trajectory has a starting address and time, an ending address and time, and then different statistics like distance, speed, duration, and the date when it was recorded. Okay. So this is what the user has done, his collection basically. This camera mode is the one where you take the picture, and I don't think I can demonstrate that from the emulator. I might try at the end, but it probably will crash. So I think I never tried it before, so let's try it later. But the tracking screen I can demonstrate. So this one is basically your current location with the address on the top and a GPS error here. So this says how accurate your location is. And we have 3 color codes here actually. We have green. This means you are getting very accurate location and most likely you're outdoors. We have yellow. This means that you are indoors, so you don't have access to satellite information, but you are getting your location in some other means. And we also have orange. If you are in a place with no signal, no coverage, you can still use Mopsi to locate other places. So it won't look as authentic location, but you can somehow fake your location somewhere else. This is useful, for example, if you plan to search for things or like bus schedules or services in a place where you are not, somewhere away. So you can do that, but only when location is not available. So it's kind of a feature that, okay, not available, it means you're probably somewhere where the phone says not. So it allows you to tweak that location. When you press the start button here, the timer starts ticking, and basically your trajectory starts to be recorded here. So, okay. Yeah, for some reason this map doesn't really. In Windows Phone there were 2 other features here. The map would continue to update to show your current location, but also offered possibility to view the entire route or not track you anymore if you want to look somewhere else. So functionality is a little different between these versions, but more or less it allows you to do this kind of tracking here. Let's put one more coordinate there. So it's going to look kind of like a reverse Z on the map. and I'm going to stop it, and it asks me now if I want to publish the trajectory to Facebook, but it's not going to work. So Facebook API changed, I think, 2 or 3 times since we last did the update. Okay, but we will check the trajectory later. Whatever I recorded now, speed is quite fast. Yeah, and it jumped pretty much. Okay, the friends. So this says, I think, only people that have been active in the last week, and there are not so many. It's just me and Basse here. And it also gives you access to their photo and root collections. So you can see, for example, what were my most recent pictures. This is some weird thing I found in the forest. It may be some kind of geocache or something. It's a house filled with Moomi characters, just tied to a tree somewhere in Hukanhauta in Joensuu, if you know where it is. But I know exact coordinates from here, so I could find it again if I want. And again, trajectories and so on. All right, guide. So this one automatically starts this recommendation feature. And what the recommendation feature is going to give you is a list of things nearby to your location that have been rated good by other people and that are interesting to you. And by that I mean, if you look up here, there is a search keyword field. So if I type in that search keyword something there, like, for example, pizza. Of course, Mopsi is going to search for things related to pizza in the database. It may be pictures, or it may be real services. I hope it works. Okay, it does work. So it finds some services. These ones with the stars are services, and the ones with the thumbs up and down are pictures taken by different people. But Mopsi also records now that one of my interests is pizza. So again, the recommendation feature takes into account also what I have searched in the past and tries to predict what I might be looking at the moment. It's actually a research paper, and I can point you to it after I finish this demo. So if you want to know exactly how they are being recommended, then you can read that if interested. This next bus, I don't think it works anymore, and if it does, it's a miracle. It used to tell the buses that are, okay, the buses that are starting near to your location and that are going in very different places. So for example, you don't have to really enter any destination. You just get all possible destinations that are coming in the near future from your location. So it's kind of it's a bit useful because you just start it with one click, but it's very hard to find out how to go to a specific place, which is not the destination here in the list. So you might have to change a bus, and then it doesn't support this kind of thing. So it's a bit limited.
Does this use the Open Road Maps service or Google Maps?
Yes, it uses this what did you call it? I always forget the name.
Open Street.
No, it doesn't use the OpenStreetMap service. It uses something else. So
Google has some service at least that I've found out.
yeah, there is a Finnish service actually, and I will try to find its name, so I don't remember it by heart. But bus data became public 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago. Before that, we had our local database with the cities of Joensuu and Kouvola only, and it was horrible to maintain. So we would get from City Hall, we would get these PDF files every year with how the bus lines are changing. And the changes were done with marker or some pencil there. And then you're like, oh, okay. So this bus now has a star on it, and that means it's only going on weekdays, and we have to change these manually here. And then after you do all those changes, it's like, I hope all the necessary changes were with the markers and we understood what they mean. So it was very, very hard to get reliable information. But about 1-2 years ago, this system became public that has information about all buses in Finland. So it's a Finnish service. And I will try to find out also this after we finish.
Have you looked at the system that Kuopio uses? They have a real-time GPS location for each bus.
I have not used it, but we have one student, Golam, who is doing now master thesis with I have it with me, but it's at my home. I have his thesis with me to read, and his thesis is about bus systems. So he made some kind of survey and distributed to many people to find out what kind of people there are. Like what user types are there? Because you have the typical commuting person, you have the tourist in an unfamiliar location, you have the person that never uses the bus, but sometimes he has to for some reason, so he's unfamiliar with everything, how you pay, does it work with credit cards, or you need cash, or whatever. So he found out these user types, and then he did a survey on different applications, and I hope this one is also there. So he had at least 5 or 6 different applications that he tested in Finland. And I hope to learn also what they are from reading his thesis.
The Kuopio system, for me, it's really, really good. It has very low latency, about 1 second.
Really? So in 1 second?
Yeah, and you can actually see where the bus is. And by clicking all the buses, you can see the route.
Okay, that's great. So the system that I mentioned for this public data, in Finland, it is quite fast, so they offer API for it. You can query whatever you want there, and it does work relatively quickly. So I would assume that every app nowadays in Finland is using that, except for Google, which has their own thing. But I hope to go and look what that one is called. I'm sure we will figure it out. Okay, but anyway. Let's move a little bit more. Some settings here. Settings are quite basic. Language, I think multiple languages supported, at least Finnish, English, maybe also Romanian, because we were involved. No, not here. For the Windows Phone, I added also Romanian language. It's very useful. Okay, notifications, share photos and routes on Facebook, all of these things on the bottom, they don't work anymore. So unfortunately, a lot of work went into that, and now they don't function anymore. And the map type, you can choose to have some different kind of views here. Okay, but...
There was a typo there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the map?
Yeah, map type. City light.
City light. Yeah. That's kind of funny because we were sharing the, texts. So the text and the translations were in separate files. So all the different mobile systems were reading and writing from the same. Right. They were reading and writing from the same text document, but I think Android version might be the only one that supports this SQLite. So the developer there maybe thought, I don't update this text, I just hard code it here. So things like that can happen, even in bigger applications. I don't know if you have noticed, but in applications where you can change languages, very often buttons that say something like yes, no, or okay, cancel, they remain in English. Everything else changes, but those very often don't change. And sometimes they change only in some parts, which is something that I find very, very often in various applications. So not everybody is doing a very good job at handling languages. And to the best of our knowledge, the best thing is just to keep everything in text files and use the same in all applications and the web, if possible. So, yeah. But typo here. Yeah. Okay. So this was about the mobile application. I think I'm going to leave it on there, but we will look now at the website as well. Okay, so back here. Now this Z user doesn't appear here, but if I log in with my account, it still doesn't appear there. Okay. But if I go to my profile, and the profile here contains much more information than the one. Okay, some problem with Google Map here. The API key expired. I need to change it also on this page. Okay. The settings here has an option show test users for an account. And if I'm going to save that, then refreshing the page here should show now that logged in user guide there. So by default they are not appearing because they might generate strange data and we want to filter that out. But now you can see that he is here, quite close to Mikrokatu. And we have some information here, like completed walking tour of 1 kilometer. So somehow Mopsi detected this transportation mode after the person finished and writes the distance also there. It didn't, I don't think it detected it correctly, but then again, I don't know what it is. So this is now the, okay, yeah, it's an, we have an error here. The movement type analysis for this trajectory is failing because included in the method there is some filtering method, and this filtering method looks for very big GPS errors, like points that are moving very quickly far away from where you are at the moment. And anything above some kind of threshold is considered GPS error, and in this case I think all of it is considered the GPS error. So that's why when I press now this analysis button, there's nothing here. There's some kind of these points are somehow visible in this chart, but this route is unusable. Yeah, but that's why we keep test users hidden usually, and normal routes are fine. So normal routes, this was yesterday walking in Kuopio, and I have been also in Saaristokattu and around Puyo somewhere. So these were my movings here. And we have seen the trajectories already in that previous lecture, so I won't insist on that. The photos, however, I do mention that they are being clustered. So instead of showing all the 77 items, we have 4 big clusters where we choose just one representative image. And if you click this 11 here, it's basically going to show you pictures from northern Finland or even Norway. So that means that this, that means that this cluster on the top actually contains some things from here, from summertime. So this is quite a nice way of looking through photos. Before this lecture started, I found some of my very old photo in Romania by just going there and well, I didn't even know what year it was, but I was going where I knew that the photo had been taken, which is my parents' countryside, at the countryside where my parents live. And I was looking for some specific picture here. I'm not sure if I can still find it now, but oh yeah, it was this swing that I made there one summer. So it's very easy to find these kind of photos, even if you don't remember what name they had or the time. So it was actually 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. Okay. And the same clustering system is also working here for the users, actually. When I'm zooming out, at some point, Z and Radu are going to be clustered in the same user, and this will happen with all of the users eventually, no matter how far they are, if you zoom out enough. And here, you see a bit more users. We show 1 month active users on the website. So that's why Pasi and Radu are the only ones appearing on the mobile, and they are differently color-coded here. So orange means over an hour ago, and I think this means over a day ago. And red means online now, like the Z user is. Or maybe in the last hour. Something like that. Okay. Then recommendation feature is also existing here. Search feature, same as before. It is possible to type. Bus is also relatively limited, but well, gives you something. Okay. And finally, before we go a little bit into depth about how the things work, how some of the things work, here in the profile page, we also show the photos. We also show statistics about trajectories, like that I cycled 40 times, ran 59 times, and walked most of the time. Some kind of driving here. This is the last year. It also shows meetings, so who I met, and this is just based on proximity. So was I physically close to any other logged in user? Mopsi. And visiting means being at some of the services from the database. Before you ask, these are the services in the database. Okay, this page also needs me to update the API key for Google Maps, which changed about the same time as Lamat started. So Google updated a bit their terms of services, and API key is deprecated now. So these are services that we have in Mopsi. Most of them are in Finland, but we do have a few also in other countries, and they were manually added by us. So it's more or less a proof of concept. It's not very useful, for example, if you are living, well, seems one service in Romania, and that is a Chinese restaurant that I visited just a few weeks ago. So not very useful to anybody there if you think about points of interest. It also shows the services in this kind of list mode. So here this list mode has, it's possible to see for each of them what are the keywords entered, description, address, and coordinates, exact coordinates. Creation date and last edit date if available. Right. And there are quite many of them. I don't know exactly how many because I don't have a counter here to show me how many rows they are. But and this ID may jump over a few values. So now I'm sorting the ID, increasing order, but yeah, at some point here it's jumping from 117 to 218. So yeah, to figure out how many they are, I could inspect the page, do a little JavaScript maybe, and count the number of these TRs. So this would be one way of doing it. If you want, for example, edit this as HTML, maybe you would, yeah. Or how about copy element and didn't copy everything. This editing seems not to work very well. Oh. Doesn't work like that. And it's not here because they are loading dynamically. But, this should open, but it doesn't open because it is too big here. It doesn't matter. They are many. I think you could write some JavaScript to read how many children there are in this field, but I don't bother with that. So I don't know how many services there are, but there are a few thousands, I think. So we also imported some famous landmarks from other cities because there were some openly available database over there. So we used a database called View on Cities, I think. Yes, this one. So it contains some attractions from all over the world, and we actually contacted the guy who is owning this page, and we asked if we can have his data. And we got it. We parsed it in the format that we needed in Mopsi, and we just got more points of interest in the system. Okay, but I would like to look a little bit to answer some of the questions. First, yeah. First, I want to show you where we have these publications. So these publications are from the machine learning group at the university. And not all of them are about Mopsi, but some of them are about recommendation systems. Like this one asks if social network can be used somehow for recommendation. Basically, we wanted to know if you and your friends are interested in the same things or not. So if Mopsi doesn't have enough data about you, but it has about your friends, could he use their recommendations successfully in your case? So this was some paper there. This is also some other thing. But the one that is telling you how the recommendation system in Mopsi works, so no research-oriented, not so research-oriented, is this paper. It's called 4 Aspects of Relevance in Location-Based Media, Content, Time, Location, and Network. So this is just some paper here, and it shows what the recommendation system uses when scoring different items there. Okay. Now, one more thing I should mention, but now Mopsi is kind of broken for some reason. I think the web page became somehow stuck, and it seems completely stuck. So I will try to open it in maybe this incognito version. Right, but I need to be logged in here. Again, sometimes there are processes running on the background that make it unresponsive for a current session, and I don't know other way to handle this quickly. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to mention. Anybody can actually create a service in some place. Let's say, for example, that we are adding Technopolis as a service. So the way I would do it is I would look up in Google to see if Technopolis has a web page. I guess it's this. So I would take the URL from there and I would paste it here. And a lot of other research that was done in Mopsi is actually here. So for example, keywords, instead of typing them manually, there is this button that says extract from link. Now, I don't know if this works very good because this page is in Finnish and the method is not tailored for Finnish. But one of my colleagues made a paper that analyzes the content of the web page and tries to figure out these keywords automatically. Now, I'm sure Oslo is not a good keyword here. But
also not kaikki.
Kaikki, yeah, everything. Vantaa, Espoo. Many things are not good here. I think it's because Technopolis is probably also in other places. So it doesn't figure out very good. This part, but there is a method for it. Also these photos, if you want a photo from the system, we can try also this. Can it find a suitable photo from this web page? And it found not very good, but maybe this T is like a logo or something. So I guess you could use that, but I was expecting something like this to be more meaningful. Anyway, and title also. Let's see if this one works. You may think it's okay. This one worked. You may think it's easy, but to read the title of a page, but it's surprisingly hard. So because not everybody uses this metadata there. They just put things that look that are visually seen on the page, but how does your method know that that is the title or not? So you can check if interested in these things, also this publication link, and if you search here for things like title, then you find things like using linguistic features to automatically extract web page title, or similarity measures for title matching, or content-based title extraction from web page. They are all part of how Mopsi works, but most of the features that are more complex like this are not used by everyday users. They are more like for administrators and so on. Okay. And I think we can look now for this, if we can figure out what database the buses are using. For that, because I don't remember, I'm going to have to go on the server. And hopefully I remember where it is. Okay, something about buses here. Next bus here. Okay. These are some very, very old logs here when we still had a local database, and Kouvola was one of the supported areas. Okay, have you heard of DigiTransit?
In some context, yes.
I think this is the name. Let's Google it first. I have to say that I have done this very long ago. Okay, yes, so this Reittiopas maybe. Okay. Destination. Okay, no rules from A.
disappointing. I'm not sure how to use this web page, but it is how we are now getting those results in Mopsi, so it should be working. And I am pretty sure that this is the thing that...
Maybe
Yeah.
HSL has limited their database that they use within the Helsinki.
Okay, so you mean that I won't be able to...
Well, the link that you selected might have been for Helsinki region.
Oh yes, this HSL there. Yes, good point. So let's try in Helsinki. Okay, I'm getting that. Okay, so this seems to work somehow. It tells you the bus or tram or whatever it is, name. Interface, this interface here is pretty nice, I think, but I don't know very well how it works. But this is not just an interface. So if we look at the code, where was the code? Okay, if we look at the code, we see here that there are, two links. One is for Helsinki region, one is for Finland region, and they are basically offering also API from this DigiTransit. And I think you can read the API somewhere here. Okay, for developers on the top. I guess it's these APIs on the left. So routes, stops for bicycle, or stops, I think, are the bus stops or stations in general. Okay, it even has these options to check how accessible they are. I'm not going to go through the documentation there, but after this data became public and this API became available, we stopped using our own database, this Mariescu-Istodor, and just replaced the code from there to call these. Of course, we had to parse the data in the correct way, but we didn't have to worry anymore about PDF files with markers and crazy things like that. So we learned firsthand how difficult it is to maintain such a system, and it's good that others are paid to do it. Okay, so this is more or less what I wanted to talk about Mopsi. It has a lot of things there actually, so I wouldn't know where to start to explain all the features, but from the usability point of view, Mopsi is not very good. Many of the features are either hidden or they are not good enough for typical users. They need you to be somehow an expert user or familiar with the system, or somebody to tell you how to use it. So it is far, I think, from becoming a commercial application by itself, I mean as a whole. that doesn't mean that some of its components can't become smaller applications by themselves, but it does need some work there and somebody involved in the development. So I can just say about target audience. So Mopsi is one of these things that tries to target everybody, but only because the people that are working that have worked for Mopsi had very different interests. Some people had trajectories. Some people had this text mining from web pages, like what we did with the keywords and the title and so on. Some people had recommendation systems. Some people had social networks. So in the end, Pasi had everybody working in his group make something in Mopsi. If this fits with the target audience or not, I don't know. But what I can say is that even with the features not 100% polished, it is very good when you can go to some conference or somewhere and present the results actually working in the system. Because usually research papers are just paper, you test it on this small data set here, and nobody else can test it unless they implement your method, or they copy the data set and they copy your code if it's available somewhere. It usually isn't. So basically Mopsi makes it very transparent how it works, and it's also applying the research in a real environment. So for that purpose, it fits its purpose.
Was the original idea for the program to be commercial, or?
It still is. So we are planning to get it commercial. We are quite often trying to get more funding for it, because it's not going to get commercial without more money in it. I mean, new features are coming almost every day. Not quite every day, but just a small example. So this is something I might have shown you in the trajectories lecture. It's just a page where you can test how different similarity measures between trajectories are outputting the numbers here. It's a nice page, works pretty well. What I didn't mention is that when we are building new features, we are not working directly in Mopsi. We are working in something called Mopsi Dev. So we build there something, and when it gets good enough, we put it also to the main page. So if I go to Mopsi Dev, this is kind of a hidden thing at the moment, but what I'm trying to write a paper on is, this is the same thing as before, the two trajectories and different similarity measures between them. But what I have added new here is the context, is buildings. So the point here is that what I want to make is that sometimes, even though parts of trajectories that may seem as similar without this context, without these buildings, these parts look pretty similar. But if I put these buildings on, then this is clearly two parts of the same street, but here it's different roads. So how big the road is, or is there something in between the two trajectories, may or may not affect your application. So in that case, it will take a little time here, but anyway, it will calculate now a new similarity numbers. So all of these numbers will soon change when new results are coming. And basically, this is one small update that goes into Mopsi now. Of course, it's of interest to me, and probably very, very few Mopsi users would benefit from this, but it still goes there. And it still helps me because I can load any route from Mopsi here, like some real trajectory, real data, and it's much more convincing when you go and present some result on some data that has been collected by a normal user in a real context, rather than just points that people are putting in PowerPoint by themselves and drawing lines in between, and somehow gives impression that, yeah, method does work in real life when unexpected things happen, like GPS noise, or maybe people going through buildings, or some things like that. Okay, but anyway, so the current version of this similarity doesn't have the buildings feature here. So it is one example of how things are added to Mopsi now. They are not considering the users very much. They are just considering the people who are working for it because they want to work, like, tied to their research at the moment. Yeah, but do you have any questions? Anything that you're interested in? It can be Mopsi, it can be something else. If it touches on something we talked today, even a little bit, we can talk longer.
The cron system behind Mopsi, which languages?
Okay, programming languages. So I would say basic programming languages, it's PHP and MySQL. MySQL has also these spatial extensions, so you can put the geographical coordinates, and you can use R3 for indexing and to doing nearest neighbor queries in 2D space. So we just use MySQL, even though other database systems like PostgreSQL would be more suitable for this type of application. But for all our needs so far, MySQL has been enough. PHP is the server side. JavaScript, HTML is the client side. That's really, really an understatement. Because on the server side, I would have to say at least 10 different languages are used. And this is because of you guys. New student coming, wanting to do some project for credits or whatever, then we ask, what do you know? Python. What do you know? Java. What do you know? C++. You, Objective-C. You, C#. So then we get this mess of code in very different languages, and we have to figure out how to make them talk to each other. So it's not the typical way of development that you find in companies where, okay, everybody will learn PHP with, I don't know, MVC or whatever framework. I don't even remember how they're called. Or, yeah. And server side and client side, maybe this Node.js or, okay, Node.js I think goes on server also. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, so there everybody's following the same protocol. Here, we are really happy when some new student comes that we don't care anymore. Like, if somebody is interested, then that's good. So, in addition to that, all the mobile versions are native. So, Symbian was made using Qt with C++, Android is Java, iOS is Objective-C, Windows Phone is C#. So I would have to say, I don't know Ruby, so I think we don't have Ruby. But the others I know a little bit because I see it in Mopsi in different places. And it's really this kind of spaghetti with a lot of things. Many of the harder algorithms, of the more complicated ones, for example, this transportation mode detection, they are C.
in the past, C was considered to be much faster than all the other ones, except, of course, the assembler language. But because of that, people choose C to implement the things. Nowadays, I don't think it's that much difference anymore. It used to be more because in the beginning this Java virtual machine that you have to install when you program in Java was using resources and was somehow noticeably slower than C. So it was less used before, but now I think Java and C are kind of on the server at the moment, equally used.
You said PostgreSQL multi-data, I mean with the Mopsi table. Is there any kind of noticing functionalities?
I don't know. The reason why I told that is because we had many partners during the years, like people sponsoring us or working together with different companies. For example, we worked with Keypro, Fastroy, Arbonaut in Joensuu. And they were recommending, you should switch to that, you should switch to that. I would have to say that probably we should listen to them because they are business oriented, they are looking at the people, at the users. But researchers' point of view is usually that I know how to make it with what I have so far, I do it like this, because then I get the results, I write the paper and I move to something else. I don't care who is using it very much. But some functionality, some features, we did put a lot of effort to make them more visible, more than just a paper. So I used to do this, I actually do this also recently, so if I go to this transportation mode API page, this one. This didn't exist when Lama started. So this page I made actually for you, even though I don't think any of the projects are really need this API. But this paper is from my colleagues, and I think that the paper is pretty good. And it's able to do this segmentation and to do the transportation mode detection. So I decided that why not make an API for people, give sample code how to call it, and a demo page here where you can even change some of these properties on the right or paste another trajectory and see how the method behaves on that. So here I separate the trajectory into two. So now it finds this trajectory here as walking, and this is the part I deleted. So then I simulated a new input. Of course, you can paste something else there or call the API directly. But in my opinion, this is much better than having just this paper. So this is the original paper, how the transportation mode works. Of course, you can read that, but if you have something like this, where you basically, if you are working with trajectories, you will have trajectories at hand. You can drag and drop these kind of tests to see, let's see if it works on my data or my friend's data or so on. It's giving you more than just the paper. So I think it's important to pay attention to these, not just publish and then move on to something else, but see if people can actually use, or you can push people to use your methods more.
Is that drag and drop option for JSON data, or does it use all maybe GPX or KLM? KML?
I think it has to be in this format. So it is text file with latitude, comma, longitude, comma, and timestamp. I think this is not written anywhere, but you will find out, because if you drag and drop something here, it's gonna, first thing it does, it replaces what is here, and then it warns you if the format is not good. So basically it's CSV, comma separated values. We did this, I don't remember why, probably because we didn't have enough time to support everything. Because the best thing would be drag and drop, and after you do it, the system figures out what the format it is.
Wouldn't GPX be basically standard?
XML, yes. It's a GPX is like XML. So actually, in Mopsi, we do support it. If you go,
KML would be Google's standard.
yeah.
So those which have I would expect fairly easy implementation.
You would think. Yes, actually implementation is pretty easy. So, because we already have the functions. So GPX at least, we do have it here. So it looks like that. It's actually XML, but with some predefined node names.
But for GPX, they can use also a lot of other information. For example, I'm using Suuntos, and you can download the sports tracking routes, and it has a lot of
Extra information.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can put more information there. Okay.
It's, I think those are under tag extensions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, here it wouldn't help very much because this method only uses what is in here. And you're talking now about standards, and I would tend to say that these standards are also depending on who is using your system. If a person developing applications, like for mobile or whatever, is going to use this system, I would say they would need GPX. It's the most common way that that trajectories are processed and stored in persistent memory in devices. But if you're going to search data sets of trajectories for research, most of them are like this. Separate files where you just have latitude, longitude, timestamp. And the reason is space, usually. If you take the Mopsi database, I think it's gonna be something like maybe 100 gigabytes of points. No, sorry, 1 gigabyte of points. If you store them in GPX, it's going to be 3 gigabytes of points because you have all this syntax that you need there. When you are downloading datasets, uploading datasets for doing research, like what researchers usually do, they don't want to download something 3 times as slow. When you load just one particular route, it doesn't matter much because one trajectory is small enough. It doesn't matter if it's 3 times bigger, it's still going to be a fraction of a second. But when you download something that maybe takes half a day, you don't want it to take 1 day and a half.
Coming from bioinformatics side where the data sets are hundreds of gigabytes, it sounds 1 to 3 gigabytes.
It's small. But if you host it in Finland and the person wanting to download it is in China, he's going to have a problem. We don't have this cloud system. Okay, again, different target audience here also, but if I will have time, that's what I would like to do here. You drag it, and then it's going to be like, looks like you uploaded the GPX, or looks like you uploaded KML, or
From that, the conversion to a CSV file is not that difficult, I would expect.
no, it's not. It's pretty straightforward to do the conversions, but somebody has to implement them here, and we don't have yet function to check, to figure out what is the format. So it can be very easy because this root GPX from here seems to be basically seems to have the word GPX in format. So you could simply do a scan for this word. If it's a substring in the whole string, then you have some kind of hint that yes, it's probably GPX. Of course, you can do very complicated parsing and figure out exactly the.
That would assume that the person making the GPX file would abide with the standard.
They should. Otherwise, when you so XML has a standard, but GPX is basically XML with imposed no names for these nodes, if I remember correctly.
Call it a de facto standard.
Yeah, of course you can add more metadata, like what you said before. But I think that the data that must be there is at least points that have latitude, longitude, maybe time. Like this time here is in addition to the tracking point object. So I think you may have GPX where that time component is lacking. Then you can just draw lines on the map, but you don't know how fast or slow the lines are. But yeah, good talk. So I do want to figure that out. Of course, one way of doing it is also from the extension. Files usually have extension for this purpose. It will be .gpx or .kml or .csv or
Well, that's the least risky.
It is. It can be risky, but then again, these are files
Not risky, but unreliable.
unreliable. Well, nothing is going to be perfect unless these file systems are indeed very well defined. The structure in the files. But you probably know that I can change extension to some PDF file to something else, and then Windows is getting a bit crazy there. So, even then, I could say that extension is still important. It would be the first thing I look at. It's a bit unlikely that the person is going to upload a GPX file that contains KML content. I mean, GPS extension, but some other content. So I would look for that if available, and if not, then I would try more complicated parsing. But good point. So that would be very, very good because I wouldn't need to write here, for example, this multiple routes supported if separated by asterisk thing. So this is basically the input here, and because I put this symbol, I now get two routes in this example. So this format is not really very well documented, but the input is basically what you see. So yeah. What happens if I upload this GPX thing here? I would assume that it replaces this with GPX. Okay, TXT files accepted only. But let's put its extension to be TXT. I think it probably didn't do anything. might not recognize the format and just ignores it, but it's,
Trying to look for a CSV.
I think so. I think so. I adapted the code from somewhere else, but I don't look there. But yeah, it's a very good point. So next time I will have time for this. That's what I'm gonna do. Of course, time is also an issue. Now this was the good time to look at because I was teaching to you these APIs on the server. So okay, little time for this. Let's see what still needs updates and new page. But it is old paper from 6 years ago, and focus is to make new papers, not to worry about old ones very much. Yeah. Any more questions?
More about the source code, if you go from source or code.
Some things in Mopsi we published source code also, but okay, so Mopsi is not open source. Some things in Mopsi are because of the publication. So first of all, if you are reading the article, then article contains everything you need to know to implement the method. It could be easy to implement or hard to implement, or it could give you the code listed. It depends on the author of the paper, if he was skilled enough to make good code and make it available. I have to say that I'm not very good at that. So most of my papers don't have that. They may have small components that you can install. My main problem, I mean, I only have few papers where I publish the code. This is because code is, like I explained before in Mopsi, a combination of many programs. Some is C, some is Java, some is Python. And to explain to people how to run those together or to re-implement them all in a single source, it's very time-consuming and a lot of effort. So I don't like this, but it is a small problem. In the one paper that was published quite recently about this extracting road network from GPS trajectories. So it's actually a combination of different source codes that are on the server. For example, if you go to the software in our group, then these are all source codes here. And these are clustering algorithms. So, for instance, that one paper about the network extraction is using this package. It's using this package. It's using the validity. This one, probably this one also, and we are pointing to these in the paper, but to get them and to put them together head to head, it would need a good programmer to spend at least a couple of days to get it there. But to build the whole system, package it somehow, it's not going to work. You need to recompile the C parts and assume that they can have exactly the same folder structure on their server, or really spend efforts into making it general enough. So this is now the problem of doing research where you are working with existing system, is that, yeah, it's a bit more convincing, the result, but you have to worry with more issues like this. Usually what researchers do is they stick to data, like Pasi is doing a lot of clustering research, and he just sticks to data. He maybe doesn't even remember what the data is, but he stays with it, he proves some concept, and then he moves on again. Doing research this way is very easy, and you can output your code very simply, because it's just reading the data, writing the output. You don't have to worry about what database you use or what anything really. And we do have that also happening with some data in Mopsi. For example, we have made public some data sets like this Mopsi Roots 2014. So this is 7 million points and 51 users. So these 51 users, each of them has some trajectories recorded, and they look like that. So you can just download this as a text file, as well, many text files. Again, why we did this for researchers. So if they want to try to see if their results work on our data set, then they can get it like that, and they don't have to download one by one from Mopsi all the trajectories using the online tools. It's like a package.
Throughout the package, how will it abides to the privacy laws, GDPR, the new EU?
This is a very good point. I can just
for what I saw, you can
figure out
identify the persons.
Exactly.
Fairly easy.
Okay, so I have to say I have to look to this, because this standard was introduced after we made this data public. But what I can tell you is that we anonymize the users. So you don't know who is user 1 and who is user 2. It's also different from the IDs from the database. So we did a double anonymization. And then the people who we took, these 51 users who we took the data from, we know them, all of them. And they knew what we are going to do when they are doing tracking there. So,
does the new laws impose something?
I don't know
If I
exactly.
were you, I would check.
I should check.
Carefully.
We should check very carefully, because usually these kind of data set collection things mean that you have to get signatures from all these 51 users, and then you are allowed to do it. But I'm not sure how it works now in the case that we did it already, and then the law changed. We also have a privacy policy for Mopsi that basically says that the data is public. So if I'm going to make this data set, or somebody else, by just opening Pasi's roots one by one and pressing that download GPX button, and then making his data set himself with 1 million clicks, it's possible to do it because data is public in the first place. So it is possible in Mopsi to make private user, but I think we have just 1 or 2 of those. So again, I don't know how much pressure is on me to check those standards, even though I should, because anybody can create that data set just from the fact that people record it publicly. So I don't like to say I don't know how what to do here, but I somehow don't think it's going to be a very big